But we're going to start off with going to China, and Xi Jinping was looking at a huge parade and so on, a major military parade held in Tiananmen Square in Beijing, of course, to mark the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. I have to say, he said some pretty unpleasant things about Japan in the course of the speech that he gave, perhaps unsurprising in a certain sense, but it is 80 years later. The BBC and other media took the opportunity to present this as a major provocation as China was showing off some of its new weaponry, which, well, does the West have any defense against any of this, Brian?
Quite a lot of it. They don't, Mike. The moment it goes into hypersonic missiles, the West's in trouble at the moment.
Yeah, indeed. So the event, as I say, was to mark 80 years since Japan's defeat at the end of World War II. Western leaders didn't attend. Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un were the guests of honor. And as you can see on screen, lots of new hardware, including the J-15, which is China's new carrier-based electronic warfare jet, which you'll see in a second. Submarine-launched intercontinental ballistic missile was there as well, a new one, along with drones of various kinds. Perhaps some of them were autonomous. Now, Xi's message was simple. Today, mankind, he said, is faced with the choice of peace or war, dialogue or confrontation, win-win or zero sum. And he went on to say that the Chinese people firmly stand on the right side of history. I'm sure they probably stand on the left side of history if we consider their politics. But anyway, that's another thing. So, he's sending a message not to mess with China, apparently, by showing off all his hardware. But he's also apparently, at least on the surface, offering the option of dialogue, unlike the West, which is clearly on a non-negotiable path to war, despite the demonstrations from China and Russia of what they have in their arsenals. For example, functioning armies, navies, and air forces. Do we have functioning armies, navies, and air forces?
Not entirely. We certainly haven't got a functioning navy, Mike, because we've talked about that in a really bad situation. And of course, the army is not big enough to fight, and the RAF at the moment is just something on the sideline. So UK in a pitiful state.
Well, as the war drums keep beating, let's bring the BBC back, because with no skepticism whatsoever, they were reporting on Monday that a flight with Ursula von der Leyen on board was disrupted due to suspected Russian interference. The BBC reports that this was according to the European Commission, and they just believed them without any particular challenge at all. They quote an unnamed spokesperson who allegedly said the GPS jamming happened while von der Leyen was about to arrive in southern Bulgaria on Sunday. The plane landed safely, and the spokesperson is allegedly said to have said, we have received information from the Bulgarian authorities that they suspect that this was due to blatant interference by Russia. The Financial Times also got in on this again with no skepticism, and also citing unnamed officials, and they reported that von der Leyen's plane had to land at the airport with pilots using paper maps. Apparently,
yes, I saw that comment. That was a big shock for the pilots that they actually had to do some work.
Yes, the problem is though that Flight Radar 24 disagrees with all this. They tweeted out on Monday that they were seeing media reports of GPS interference affecting the plane carrying von der Leyen. They said that some reports claim the aircraft was in a holding pattern for 1 hour. This is what we can deduce from our data. Flight Radar 24 said the flight was scheduled to take 1 hour and 48 minutes. It took 1 hour and 57 minutes. The aircraft's transponder reported good GPS signal quality from takeoff to landing. So I think we're going to have to say that this report from the BBC and all the other legacy media is nonsense. And the question is, why are they doing this? Well, I suspect that this is all about security guarantees. The demand that even though Ukraine is not going to join NATO anytime soon, that the Starmer regime and the EU want an Article 5 style guarantee for Ukraine, so that should our countries put boots on the ground, that any attack on them would mean war. And this is why there was all the furore over the claimed attack on the British Council building and the EU building in Kiev last week. And of course, our illustrious Secretary of State for War was giving a statement in the House yesterday, I believe, when he reiterated how disgraceful it was that the Russians had attacked the British Council in this way, which of course they didn't, not directly anyway. So this fake GPS story, I think, is a continuation of that.
Yeah, I wonder, Mike, whether what's actually gone on is aircraft coming close to the conflict zone are getting some interference from whatever electronic warfare systems the Russians are using. But I think there's a big difference between picking up interference and actually somebody targeting you with a dedicated electronic warfare system. So my view on this is a manipulated story.
Absolutely. So with all that in mind and the war drums beating as hard as they are, it should come as no surprise then that Le Canard in France is claiming to have seen leaked French government documents which show that French hospitals have been told to prepare for French casualties by March 2026 because of a major war. In fact, not just French casualties, but NATO casualties and so on from other countries. Now, we have to make it clear that Le Canard is considered a satirical magazine, but it also covers serious stuff as well. So you've got to make up your own mind whether this was intended to be satire or whether it's real. It certainly is real as far as the mainstream media is concerned, but I suppose we could, the closest thing in the UK that we can compare this publication to is Private Eye. So the question is, was this satire or was it real? The article says that on the orders of Catherine Vautrin, hospitals must stand ready to receive thousands of soldiers wounded in the event of a generalized armed conflict in Europe. They had received internal documents asking regional health agencies to prepare caregivers for a possible major commitment. Under the mandate of the General Secretariat for Defence and National Security, Catherine Vautrin plans to establish medical centres to accommodate patients returning from the combat zones. These centres will have to be located close to bus or railway stations, ports or airports to, quote, enable the rerouting to their home nation of foreign soldiers. And they're suggesting perhaps 100 casualties per day for 2 consecutive months or 250 patients daily for 3 days at peaks of activities. But it's not clear whether that's per facility or as a whole. As a whole, Brian, for a general conflict, that seems like quite low numbers.
I would have said so. And what are they talking about here, Mike? This is the key thing until there's some actual meat on the bones as to what they think is going to happen. But this isn't war against the Russians. This is some sort of game.
Yeah,
again, it's manipulation
here. Yeah. Yes. Now, it should come as no surprise that Ursula von der Leyen, speaking to the FT, claims that Europe has a pretty precise plan for sending troops to Ukraine. There's a clear roadmap, she said, for possible deployments. Security guarantees are paramount and absolutely crucial. So there we have this reiteration of these security guarantees. This is this Article 5 scenario, Article 5 type scenario. She said we have a clear roadmap and we had an agreement in the White House, and this work is going forward very well. So let's just bring her on screen so you can see these words. Security guarantees are paramount. And President Trump reassured us that there will be an American presence as part of the backstop. That's very clear and repeatedly affirmed.
Well, they're desperate to get that commitment, Mike, because without the Americans, there is no substance there. Amongst European troops and NATO.
Yes, she said that various European capitals were working on plans for a multinational troop deployment and the backstop of Americans. So, I don't quite know what to make of it. But Vanessa, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that. I know you're certainly not necessarily optimistic about what Russia and China are doing, but the language from them, despite the military parade, does seem to be suggesting that they would prefer to be talking than fighting.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, no, my reservations come from how little support they're giving to Palestine currently and the region. But I think as regards negotiations with the US, EU and UK, I think Russia and China are both perfectly sensible in their approach that negotiations should be first. And negotiations can continue even through military activity, which we've seen from Russia, of course, but not from Ukraine.
Yes, thank you for that. Now, you made a comment before the news program about these types of parades, but we'll keep that for extra. And so, if anybody's interested in listening to that discussion, you better, and you're not yet a member, you better join fairly quickly. But anyway, Vanessa, let's move on then.